What's good? What's good, y'all? Welcome back to the Trial and Error podcast. It's Brian and Fearless. We're back to burn for another week. I think we're going to wrap up our conversation about limiting beliefs or whatnot, and whatever conversation comes may come with that. Again, my name is Brian. I'm a marketing consultant, video marketing strategist, whatever. Um, and my goal is to get as many people recording as possible. But I'm also locked into improving myself and helping others kind of take on the same path. Fearless, I don't think your mic's on. Your mic's not on. Yeah. Yeah, let me I'll see if I can unmute it on my side. Nope. Whatever reason your mic is muted.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Oh, no problem. So,
I think that was on me. Sorry about that.
okay. No problem. No problem. So, let's see. Last week we were, and I'm going through our outline here.
Hmm.
This is okay.
Yeah, we got through several of them.
Okay. Well, was it soft power, hard power, or was it limiting beliefs, man?
I think it was soft power versus hard power,
All right.
and then all the things that kind of go into that.
Got
But
it.
here's the thing, though: we didn't go chronologically. We're just kind of bouncing all over the place.
Got you. So I probably need to change the title of this. I'll get around to it. So we're preempting that conversation to talk about soft power versus hard power and stuff. Um, and I will find a land. I'll find a starting place. All right. Let's see. We were talking about the difference between soft and hard power. I think we can establish a baseline of that. Um, from a governmental standpoint, hard power is more like the ability to physically arrest you, put you in jail, detain you, remove you of your rights, things along those lines. Soft power is, you know, I consider laws like legislation and laws kind of a form of soft power because it's the laws are only as good as your
The people
ability.
that abide by it.
Right. And if you got people that don't abide by it and nobody gonna check them, then laws are soft power. They're suggestions,
Mm.
right?
Yep,
And so, um,
and that's what we're seeing now. The that, but here's the thing: we've been seeing it for I want to say forever, but it's always a thing of I make rules for you to follow,
yep,
but I don't necessarily need to follow them myself.
right. And
And when you do that, you have kind of what we have now, which we have what's called a cacrostocracy, where you have a bunch of people who are, and I mean on both sides, not just one, that for the better part is basically worthless.
mhm. Well, they're
You know what I'm
almost
saying? And at least when it comes to governing people, these motherfuckers can barely govern themselves, let alone somebody else.
I think you're seeing a combination of the PR machine that politics has turned into,
Mm,
um, and a form of counterinsurgency where both sides exist to keep the the public from kind of rebelling. And so they kind of give you incremental wins and incremental losses on either side. But um, I see a lot of it as PR and gesturing and posturing. And so they are what we have is a bunch of elected officials that they're not a lot of them, and they're I'm not gonna completely broad brushstroke them because some people are term limited and it doesn't really matter, right? But you have a lot of people that are just campaigning for all they're doing is positioning themselves for the next election. And so every public stance they take or public stances that they don't take benefit them getting back into that seat of power one way or the other. You throw money on top of that. Some are completely motivated by funds, and you have a government that operates completely independently of what actually benefits the people. People are people are governing and legislating in a manner that um makes that ensures that they have access to that power in the future. And so a lot of that is a lot of that is really based on that. Like they're just trying to get back in the seat. There are some that do it for the, because of the idea of justice or whatnot. But even then, this the concept of I'm going to change the system from the inside, and you never change the system from the inside,
Mm.
because that's why the system is the system. The system has the power to compel people that are trapped within it to operate within its parameters, and you never change it from the inside. But they get in there trying to fight the good fight, mired down. Like I'm trying to propose this piece of legislation that's going to improve, somebody's life measurably, and you're up against people that are like, well, I mean, but it makes me look bad, and I don't want to look bad.
Mhm.
Because I don't want to look bad. Either I'm going to vote against or I'm not going to support what you're doing. And
Mm.
those are the two political factors that you have competing. And that was the problem with the Citizens United ruling that allowed unlimited money to get dumped into politics, where we said money is free speech and corporations are people.
Mhm.
That's what it created. Let me acknowledge a couple of people in the chat. Hey, how's it going? Was it Think Free? I like that. Thinker Free. All right. And Chris, what's going on, man? I trust a politician so little, one could tell me it's raining, I'll be standing outside and still think they're lying. Yeah,
Yeah.
because
Yeah. I feel the same way.
there are so many that it's kind of like the way I've used it, because I've been in the corporate world where you're dealing with somebody who's climbing, like obviously trying to climb,
Mhm.
and politic, and you never feel like an interaction with them is genuine. You feel like they're
Right.
playing it for an advantage all the time, every time you interact with them. And
Mhm.
a lot of politicians, when you interact with them, if you interact with them, because I've had the fortune to be able to interact with politicians that aren't campaigning at the time. And when you interact with them in real life, they act like real people. But when they're in campaign mode, when you're vote mode, it becomes a different person.
Right.
And I think the idea is one of the biggest problems is we've turned every election into basically a big popularity contest,
Yeah.
and we treat it like American Idol. And so when you treat your electoral politics and the system that keeps people alive, when you treat it like it's the winner of American Idol, you're going to get unserious people who aren't committed to any real ideas,
Mm.
because all they're trying to do is just hold on to stuff.
Right.
So there's a lot there. All right.
No, I'm with that. All right. So what's the next?
I think we were talking about, because we're on wealth and power, um, and social media creating illusions
Did
of power. So I think we can pick it up there, because that's
Did you
kind
talk
of way
about
through.
structural power versus personal?
We did, but we can always rehash it, because not everybody watched last week.
Yeah, because I like the idea that personal power comes from traits like intelligence, charisma, and networking, whereas structural power comes from systems such as laws, institutions, ownership, and policy.
Mhm.
Um, Structural power shapes outcomes before individuals can even act. Um, it doesn't need to be loud, visible, or even explained, whereas personal power can help you navigate systems. And structural power defines the system itself. So the craziest thing about that is that, and again, I use this analogy when I'm playing a video game.
Mhm.
I love to play football and basketball.
Mhm.
I As soon as turn the game on, I went into settings. The settings is the system. I set the bar so high for myself and low for everybody else that even if I lose, I don't lose.
Right.
So it doesn't matter what team I use, doesn't matter what team I'm playing. You can have a 98, I can have a 45, and I'm gonna still beat the shit out of you. Not because your team's better or my team is better, but because I rigged the system before we even started.
Right.
And if I see that you're starting to score on me more, guess what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna go back into the system. I'm gonna change some shit up a little bit so you don't do it again.
That was a perfect analogy, and it explains.
So so when people talk about what is systematic racism, what is race, I just gave it to you
Mhm.
in an analogy of a video game. It doesn't matter who the players are. The system is set for you to lose. Period.
Yeah,
It doesn't matter. Again, even when it updates, guess what? The system's still the same. Unless I go in and I change the system settings
hmm
itself, I'm going to beat your ass no matter what you do.
yeah. It
That's
kind of
it.
it goes into that was a Neely Fuller basically said if you don't understand racism, everything else you think you understand will only confuse you. And it goes into the structural system of, we even talk about, and I'm getting in the weeds here, but let's talk about it. We talk about black children in school curriculum. And even when they have black teachers, the school curriculum's constructed in a way that is not really made for them to benefit, derive maximum benefit from it. It's made to make the white students that are in class with feel comfortable. And you could take that black
Right.
student and you could make him an indigenous student, you could make him a Latino student, you could make him native, you could make him anything, make
Across the
him or
board.
her, you can make it him or her. The school, the way school is structured is to for the comfort of whoever the society's dominant population is.
Mhm.
And the lesson plans aren't calibrated for the success of individual students based on their background. And
Mm-mm.
so I went to a school that was well, it was relatively kind of progressive in the 90s. King Science Center. It's named after Martin Luther King. And even there, um, the way that the way that history was taught, it was taught from a very um, you know
European.
European Eurocentric mindset where we're talking about, okay, I got to acknowledge the chat too here. I got to stay on top of that. Um,
Okay.
but is set from a very Eurocentric mindset so that the main characters were always drawn as the settlers and the colonists and stuff, and not the indigenous people that were here, the enslaved people that were here, the Mexican people that were already living here and stuff. it We never got their frame of reference. Everything was from the colonizer's mindset, and that was the perspective. And I don't think people understand how insidious that is, where you're hearing somebody else's history told to you and narrated and dictated to you like it is your history,
Mm-hmm.
and it is not. And
Right.
it's not even the history teacher's fault. That is how the curriculum is approved and
It,
written.
it is a system within itself.
Mhm,
So again, you can change out the students, you can change out the teachers. Hell, you can even knock the building down and create a brand new one.
mhm,
No matter what you do, the system will stay in place. And until that system is changed,
mhm.
it doesn't matter. And here's the thing, and I want people to understand something. We're not talking about just a black and white thing because it's
Yeah.
not. It if you go to China, it's China is fairly homogenistic.
Mhm,
Okay. Um their books are gonna be based on them.
mhm,
If you go to certain countries in Africa, it's gonna be based around them. In America, for us to be such a salad or melting pot, it's extremely ironic how majority of our textbooks are only based around one type of individual.
mhm.
And that's the issue that certain people may have about this, that if we're all equal, matter of fact, I'll explain it like this. There should be no, there should literally be no such thing as Black History Month. It shouldn't be.
Mhm.
Like to me, it shouldn't be, because if you taught things equally, everybody would have their own day,
Mhm.
or not. I mean, it was like, oh shit, this Lithuanian guy did this. This dude from Harlem did this. This guy over here did this. I was just listening to this lady who was talking about Malcolm X's autobiography. And if you watch the movie, even if you don't read the book, if you watch the movie,
Hmm.
there's a guy in there named West Indian. What's his name? West Indian Archie, right? And apparently, this dude had this knack for remembering numbers
Hmm.
like nobody's business. And he wouldn't write anything down. He just remembered them. And there's this thing in psychology where it's like where they talk about like little small geniuses, like little small Einsteins. I want you to think about it from this standpoint. Think about the multitude of genius, the multitude of where we would be if a certain individual or certain individuals, plural, didn't try to run and rule and destroy everything. If superiority did not exist and everybody's like looking for the new and best thing
Hmm.
to bring us up as a society, prisons would still be around, but you wouldn't have near as many by no means. The college rate, for the most part, I think I think half the population would probably be in school.
Hmm.
Right? And the other half, or I would say the other quarter, would be off doing their own little thing, but creating some amazing things just as well. And we would be, I'm not going to say it would be like a utopia because there's always going to be problems,
Hmm.
right? But racism, systematic racism, discrimination, all that, especially when it comes to education, kills things so much that you're killing your own progress to to spite your face.
Yeah.
And think about the people that we have in prison right now who are serving life in prison for drug related whatever, who are multi geniuses.
Yeah.
When I say multi geniuses, I mean these are the people who could be doctors and lawyers at the same time. Like you talking about people that mentally are so whose IQ, if you want to base it off of IQ, is in like the 250s. I mean, if
Yeah.
you think about it, I think your boy Oppenheimer, that his
Oppenheimer.
name,
Yeah.
IQ was off the scale. But what they did not tell you about him was that dude was batshit crazy too.
Yeah.
He tried to kill one of his professors. He tried to poison a motherfucker. But you didn't hear about. You don't actually. Let me rephrase that. They did mention it in the movie vaguely. They
Yeah.
just kind of brushed it to the side and kept going. But the guy who helped create that bomb
Hmm.
was a fucking nut job.
Yeah, he was.
But again, if you're watching a movie, you don't. They're not talking about that.
Hmm.
And again, and that's kind of what we're talking about with showing a particular narrative one particular way, where it makes it look like, oh, he just had an issue. No, he didn't have a issue. That dude was crazy as shit
Hmm.
in general. You know what I'm saying? And but again, it wasn't really touched on like that because that wasn't the narrative. You know, but at the same time, though, I mean, the same guy who, what did they mention? They mentioned the guy that, uh, uh, what's homeboy's Nobel something Nobel,
Yeah.
the guy, the guy who created the Nobel
I can't
Peace
remember his
Prize
name though.
was also the same guy who created dynamite or whatever.
Okay.
So he creates something that kills a bunch of people, and then he creates something that saves a bunch of lives.
Is it like Edward or something along those
Yeah,
lines?
or Albert, something like that.
Yeah.
We can look it up too, or have the audience look it up.
Yeah.
But it's that juxtaposition that where you're looking for that balance, that give and take. And what happens is I think, especially in education, we don't have a lot of that, especially here in the West.
Hmm.
It's a very one-sided thing, and they're like, "Well, we don't want our kids um, to feel ashamed of this that, and the other. We don't want them to feel bad of learning about our history, but it's our history and our
Hmm.
history, good, better, and different. I, I ride here too.
Right.
This is my country as well.
Well, you see what I'm scrolling across the bottom. It's a quote that when you were talking, it kind of hit me, and I was looking it up.
Carefully planned and executed by people in power. George Scott. History is not happenstance. It is conspiratorial. Okay, I got it. Yeah.
And it
Carefully planned and executed by people in power. George Carlin.
and it's the idea of, my mom growing up and having the history being the happy slave. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? And her
Gregory Yu says that.
eh,
Gregory Yu has a whole thing on that.
in 2026, they're still saying that, and we're talking about in the 50s, right? And my mom actually had a teacher that was really transformative in her life who refused to teach them that, and the teacher would teach them Black history in the off hours and stuff, just so that they could counterbalance what was the current program in terms of what they were being teaching. Where, um, and it's crazy we're having the conversation in 2026 that they're still talking about the happy slave thing, which is a weird thing, but that is one of those executed forms of history where if you could teach that, yeah, it wasn't really that bad. I mean, there were good, I've heard people, oh, there were good slave masters. You can be good owning somebody, that's crazy. But it was it, that is a spin that exists by somebody in power to keep people not questioning the legacy that led up to this point in history. And I think
Mm,
sometimes we end up losing track of the fact that, yeah, history had happened in the past. People say that was 150 years ago, but it led up to where we currently are right now.
mm,
And if you remove that situation, I'm a comic book nerd. You remove that situation from the time stream, you could create an entire different version of the history that we know.
right,
And so all of these things stack up and all of these things matter. And when you're only getting one narrow perspective, one
right.
person that has the perspective, just like you were saying with Oppenheimer, brought an entire movie. They didn't include the fact that he tried to kill people, right? Like,
Yes. And it wasn't just once, it was a couple different times.
I watched an entire the cars that built America, and they had Henry Ford on there.
Oh, ah, man.
And they talked to all the stuff, and they didn't paint him in the most favorable light, but they did leave out a lot of the Nazi stuff,
Yeah, I'm
right?
sure. Yeah, I'm sure they did.
They talked about how relentless and how hard of a man he was on everybody that loved him, but they conveniently left out the Nazi stuff. Like we're not gonna talk about the Nazi stuff.
Right.
And so and it was a
We're
very
not going to discuss that one.
it was a very selective way that they presented it, because when we talk about industry and capitalism in this country, Henry Ford is considered a idol in that space.
Hmm.
But we also need to talk about the other side of American capitalism that did support fascism around the world in a global sense,
And still does.
and still does.
And
It still
still and supports communism too.
it supports both ends of the thing. There's a
Yeah.
reason why Haiti is not the richest. It went from being one of the richest islands in the Americas to being one of the poorest islands in the Americas. It was a very intentional mechanism that constantly extracted every piece of wealth that they created. The book
Mhm.
I'm reading now, what was it? What's it called? Um, is basically talking about the whale, real I got to pull it up. Basically, it's talking about the real history of Africa and how people have been extracting wealth from it, and not extracting in terms of a shared revenue or anything. It's extraction of wealth, trying to do it cheaper and faster, and not even caring what the collateral damage is to the people that live there. And in some cases, doing maximum harm just to do it. Oh, it's How Europe Underdeveloped America by Walter Rodney. And so, um,
I'm not gonna lie to you, man. I can't watch any. I can't read a lot of that shit anymore for a minute. Like, like it started that stuff started to trigger the shit out of me. I gotta stop. So like I've been reading more of because which is really funny because I'm in school right now for sociology and philosophy or whatever, but still like I mean reading stuff that I have to read, that's one thing, whatever, but for funsies, I gotta read some fictional shit.
I'm rereading the Dark Tower series because
Perfect.
I'm rereading that
Perfect.
entire from beginning to end and actually talking about it on my live stream. Apparently, there's a huge fan base for this because those are the videos that are doing the biggest numbers for me.
Hmm.
Um, Talking about how the Dark Tower is kind of this mishmash of pretty much every literary genre gets some representation. There's even a children's story in there. Like
Oh wow, okay.
it goes, it's a western, a horror, a sci-fi, um, slice of life. There's a children's story in there. There's even like young literature allusions, like Harry Potter esque stuff in there. Supernatural stuff, monster horror. Um, like it's all of it. And this is a far afield, but it is what it is. This is how the show goes. Basically, when you look at it, if you want to understand Stephen King's entire universe and all the different books, The Dark Tower is the linchpin for all of that. And the way they describe it is every Stephen King story is another level on the Dark Tower. And so you'll see Needful Things bleed into the Dark Tower. You'll see The Shining bleed into the Dark Tower. You'll see It bleed into the Dark Tower. You'll see The Stand bleed into the Dark Tower. And it's it's actually 8 books now. But they all tie together. And then you'll see like Harry Potter references in the Dark Tower. You'll
Okay.
see like like uh
Like what? So do they mention it or
he
how
mentions
does
it.
that work?
He mentions it, and it all of these stuff like characters will cross over. Like I think the kid from The Shining actually is a ends up becoming a character in one of the Dark Tower books. Um Alien that is the same species as it is one of the villains in the book. The Man in Black, who's Randall Flagg, who's Walter O'Dim, who was the main villain in The Shining, is actually one of the secondary or main villains, depending on which book you're reading, in the Dark Tower books. If you ever want to understand Stephen King's entire universe and how like the magic rules and how the monsters work and all the other stuff, it's in there. Every time you're dealing with a monster that's unexplained in a Stephen King book, typically it came from Todash Darkness, and that is the space in between universes in the Dark Tower series. So, like The Mist, if you ever seen The Mist,
You talking about when dude mopped his whole family
yeah,
and then oh my god, yeah, that was good.
those monsters are Todash Darkness from Stephen King.
Hmm.
Um, Green Mile, the brother that had the special
Yeah.
powers, he had a version of The Shining, Dark
I,
Tower.
I don't know what that means.
The Shining is
Hmm.
the Shining. If you've seen the movie The Shining, the kid's mental abilities, his ability to read other people's thoughts and all the other stuff, all the mental powers that they kind of alluded to in the movie, but in the book they kind of expand on a little bit. Um, his ability to do telekinesis and all the other stuff, that's considered The Shining. So any extraordinary powers that a normal human being is born with, or extrasensory perception, is The Shining. And so, like I said, I'm rereading the entire thing and discussing it uh, for my live stream on Tuesday nights, and I'm getting a pretty decent response to it. But that's the fiction I'm going through right now. In addition to, you know, books about sales, and then this book about how Europe underdeveloped Africa.
Gotcha.
I wanted to read Soledad Brother, but that actually started pissing me off.
Hmm.
Soledad Brother actually started pissing me off. Um, if you haven't read it, it's a bunch of letters, and I want to say brother's name right, from George. um, from George Jackson, his letters from prison, um,
Hmm.
and
I've
talk,
I've heard of it.
yeah, and it's all of his collected letters, and basically a lot of anti-prison movements are based on his writings and his perceptions of being a young black man who was kind of railroaded into the system and lived and died. And it's just his entire perspective of him doing self-education, and just talking about the politics of prison. It's a good book. It will piss you off. um, so anyway, the history thing. Back to the history conversation because
Okay.
um, we talked about structural power versus personal power. And we talked about how structural power has a corrosive, infectious kind of element to it, where even if you have the best intentions, if you are trapped in that system, you'll be infected with elements of it, right? Um, and I don't want to get into a whole capitalism leftist kind of thing, but that's really the critique of capitalism, of how it can have a corrosive effect on systems that are meant to benefit people, because you put a strong profit motive there. Eventually the profit motive interferes with the helping people motive,
Hmm.
and those are critiques of the capitalist system where it's all about extraction of wealth and resources. And so that's the difference. And so that's the thing, like it's a structural system, but it compels and kind of corrupts people that are trapped within it. um
Okay.
but personal power, like reading it, personal power can help you navigate through systems. Structural power defines the system itself. You are beholden to how your car's engine is built, right? If
Hmm.
you're beholden to what that engine can do, and the combustion system in your car, you can't it's very difficult to take your car from a gas car to an electric powered car. Super expensive. It's components that don't align, that don't match up. There's so much stuff that you got to do to swap it out, that it's not an easy thing to do. So you are trapped in the system that your car is designed on. The engine of our society is built on structural racism. It's built on capitalism. It's built on these things. You're constrained by those systems, and so your actions within those systems are still governed and dictated by those systems. So even if you do take any kind of action that is anti, it's still factored in and built into the system, because the system's always going to have some kind of concept of how to deal with rebellion. And in some
Okay.
cases, the rebellion is enough to keep everybody complacent, as long as they feel like they can rebel to a degree. Crazy work,
Right.
bro.
Okay.
Love the Shawshank Redemption. Yeah, that Shawshank Redemption is another Stephen King book.
Yeah.
Um,
I
it's
didn't
all
read that book. I did read what was the other one? The Green Mile. I read that one.
a Green Mile. Another one is Stand by Me. That's a Stephen King book.
Is it?
The Running Man's a Stephen King book. Um, yeah, that's what. Um, I would love to sit down and talk, even though Stephen King has some problematic shit that goes on with him. I would love to sit down and pick his brain about how he jumps between these different genres, and
Yeah.
is able to tell cohesive stories in all of them.
Hmm.
So, all right. So structural power. Um, this next one is people resent symbols, not systems. And it's the concept that people tend to direct their frustration towards visible figures rather
Yeah.
than invisible systems.
And that makes a lot of sense because look at how many people feel a particular way about the Confederate flag.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, not necessarily the system that created it, but the flag itself.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, well, like, and then you have other people who double down and say, well, this is heritage, not hate.
Hmm.
But if a person was born in, let's say a person was born in 1940 in Germany, and they just so happen to grab a swastika and put it in front of their front lawn and wave their flag. You know what I'm saying? Can you still say, well, this is heritage, this isn't hate?
Right.
Because based on where you lived at that particular time, that would have been the flag that you flew. You see what I'm saying?
I see what you're
So
saying.
again, you can say that, well, this isn't what that means, but motherfucker, you know exactly what it means.
Well, and here's the thing. So when did the Confederate flag start flying again? Start flying towards
The
towards integration.
60s,
When they're trying to integrate
during the
things.
60s.
That's when the
Because they
Confederate.
didn't use that shit beforehand.
Nope, you didn't start seeing the like. It wasn't like broad based where everybody had was trying to fly
Not
a
at
Confederate
all.
flag. It
Not at
started.
all.
It started as a rebellion, as a pushback against the concept of integration. And
That's
so,
why it's called the rebel flag.
right.
But not only that though, but here's the thing that bothers me more about that. Black people and people black people have caught more hell
Mhm.
under the stars and stripes than we've ever caught out of the Confederate battle flag.
Yeah.
Ever. And sadly enough, again, you don't you, people are not keeping that same energy with the system that created it. It's just the flag itself. Matter of fact, I'll even take it a step further. If you, matter of fact, here, um, let me find this thing right quick. Give me 1 second
Okay.
because I want to, and this is gonna kind of go to my point. Um, what are the word? Hold on. What um is the whole song of the Star Spangled Banner? Right.
Mhm.
So hold on 1 second. Let me find it.
Well,
Go ahead.
and I'll
Now I
just throw
wanted to.
while you're
I
looking it
wanted
up.
to. Yeah. Go ahead. Do you
For
think?
context, for context, the original series of the Transformers, we're talking about American and Japanese, lasted longer than the Confederacy. The original run of Transformers, the animated series, we're talking about the American ones that went for 3 seasons and the extra 2 seasons Japan, lasted longer than the Confederacy. But people are fixated on the Confederacy. But it was a very small segment of time. And it's weird. I guess my thought is it's weird to align with this thing that didn't last really that long. When
Yeah.
there have been political movements in this country that have been in existence way longer than the Confederacy, the Black Panthers and stuff like that. They outlasted them. Nation of Islam, all these other weird political movements, um, all these other was it the religious right, radical Republicans. All of these things, all these political movements lasted longer than the Confederacy, but we always are talking about it. And we live in Nebraska, bro. Seeing people in Nebraska fly the Confederate flag is crazy. Like it's crazy. But people are fixated on that symbol and heritage, not
Hmm.
hate. But I have a hard time believing that somebody flying the Confederate flag doesn't really like they can't conceptualize what this means to somebody else. That's like you know, I put on my KKK a habit and walk around. It's heritage, not hate, y'all. Well, you know what it means. No, man, it's not like that.
Yeah.
I'm just
Yes, it is. It's
yeah,
exactly like that.
and that's what I'm saying.
Because again, and again, you weren't born up under that shit. You were born up under one. So
Mhm.
you know what I'm saying. So again, I mean, that's almost like if we were to have a flag that where let's say for 10 years straight certain people were just wiped off this planet, I mean in horrible ways,
Mhm.
and all of a sudden we start making songs about it, we start playing flying flags about it, and then you go to somebody's house and they just have all kind of memorabilia of this stuff.
Mhm.
You would think, damn dude, like this is how you feel.
Mhm.
But yet still when they're doing it, it's like, no, this is just our hair. No, it's not. That's you weren't around with that. Now, even though your grandparents would have been or whatever, that's their heritage,
Mhm.
not yours. Technically, if we're gonna say that, well, this is my heritage, then why are you not flying the African flags? Because technically, we're all part of that, and the only people that have been proven that are not a part or don't have that gene that traces you all the way back to Africa is incest.
Mhm.
And that's a fact. Yeah, like dead ass. So the only way that you have 100% any type of blood in you, 100, is if it was incest.
Mhm.
I'm in anthropology. I'm telling you. Fact. It's the only way. Everybody can be traced all the way back to Africa, except for people that have been banging their mom and cousins and
Mhm.
sisters, claiming. Just
Uh,
saying.
well, and I look at it like we do the heritage not hate thing. Like, okay, so let's keep it being. So, my uncle and my mom were both involved with the Panthers. Like, I grew up with Panther memorabilia, literature in my basement, all of the stuff that they did on the underground press kind of stuff. I have all of that stuff in my house, in my mom, it was in my mom's house and stuff. Then is that my heritage? I guess I could wrap myself in that if I wanted to. But it's closer for me. That's closer than somebody who says, "Well, my heritage is the Confederacy," and you live in like Montana.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure.
Because you're talking about generations, generations, generations removed from the thing. And at some point, do we say, "Well, that was over 100 years ago"? Okay, if it's over 100 years ago, then why are you trying to show a connection to that thing? Because there's other things that you would have been more connected with.
Yeah,
You
for
know,
sure. Yep.
you know, your
Yeah.
family's a little bit dark skinned. Let's talk about great grandma. Let's talk about great grandma and what she had going on, um, and creeping and stuff. Like you're mixed in. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah,
my
that
name,
part.
my last name comes from the like my family's last name comes from the plantation that we were on in Kentucky.
Mm.
Like if we're going to have these conversations about heritage and all the other stuff, let's have a real conversation. Let's not just talk about the parts of heritage that make people feel comfortable.
So this right here is actually the third stanza. There's actually, I think there's four. Hold on, I think it was 4 or 5. So one, two, three. Yeah. So there's four. There's four stanzas in the Star Spangled Banner, which means there's four. Technically, there's four verses
Mm-hmm.
or whatever. We only sing the first one. This is actually what the second one is, and where it is banned so violently swore that the havoc of war and the battle's confusion, a home and a country shall leave us no more. Their blood has washed out their foul footsteps pollution. No refuge could save the hireling and slave from the terror of flight or the gloom of the grave.
Mm-hmm.
He- y'all hear what he's saying,
Yeah.
right? And the Star Spangled Banner in triumph doth wave of the land of the free and the home of the brave. So again, I, why just because you cut the rest of it off, it's still based in the same shit.
Yeah.
So then that's kind of what we're talking about. If I had a whole fucking song that talked about how, matter of fact, how about this? If if "Fuck the Police" was a national anthem,
Mm-hmm.
how many people would still show up to be cops? If 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 our national anthem was a "Fuck the Police," that was a national anthem. How many people would still fucking stand up and put their hand over their fucking hearts for that shit? How many cops would stand up and be like, "Yeah, this, hey man, this is just the way it is. This this is our this is our national song. Ain't nobody gonna stand up and put their fucking hand up on that.
Mm-hmm.
If
Well,
if that was our song, right? If 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 I if it were something about, you know what I'm saying? Uh, People who lived in caves in the Caucasus Mountains, raping animals, eating boogers in caves, while they sister fucked their way through existence.
Mhm.
And this was a whole entire song. How many people would raise their hand and keep singing it? So again, it's not even this. It's not even the song. It's the system within itself that
Mhm.
produces this shit.
Yeah.
And then you expect somebody to stand up and put their hand over their heart and sing this shit. The fuck are you talking about?
Well, and the concept, the
How
ritual
about
around
we
it.
sing? How about we sing "All You Need Is Love"? Can we
Mhm.
sing that? It's a great fucking song.
Well,
It includes everybody.
the entire ritual around it, like we saw people getting mad about the Black National Anthem, which is just a nickname for Lift Every Voice and Sing. They've been singing Lift Every Voice and
Lift
Sing.
every voice and
They've
sing.
been singing that since 1919. This is
Every one of them.
it was kind of tied to the NAACP before their meetings, and then it became something you would just sing at events where it's mostly black folks. They've been singing
Kind of
that.
like June 19th,
Yeah,
how we were already doing it
yeah. They've been
before it became that. Fuck out
they've
of
been
here.
singing "Lift Every Voice and Sing" and calling it the Black National Anthem before the United States recognized Star Spangled Banner as the national anthem officially.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
It's not, I'm not saying it predated the song. I'm not saying that Lift Every Voice and Sing Lift Every Voice and Sing predated the song, but the recognition of the national anthem, if I'm not
Hmm.
mistaken. Yeah, I mean, it was kind of
Well,
the
when did they make it a song? When did
what
they take Francis Scott Key's poem and make it a song?
I don't know. I have to look that up. So give me a second.
Okay.
Was the Black National Anthem before the national
I,
anthem?
I, I don't think so, dude. I think that this would have came first, and then the other one would have came second. And
I'm
I'm
not
just saying because it sounds way better.
Well, I'm saying what I'm saying is, it was a poem written by James Smith in 1919, later set to music, 1917. If I'm
Okay,
not,
right.
and so when was um Star Spangled Banner? And I could be wrong. Officially adopted
As a
as the national anthem,
as a national anthem.
1931,
What? Stop. Send me that.
March 13th, 1931. Hoover signed it into law.
No shit.
So lift every voice and sing as the Black national anthem predates the official national anthem, but since the victors are the ones that write the history books, we pretend like, oh, well, you're just doing it in response to 2020. Nah, man, if you ain't been in community with black folks, it's easy to say that. But we've been doing, I remember I went to King Science Center. I remember been to plenty of church things, been to plenty of award ceremonies that were for and produced and started and for black folks. We sing lift every voice and sing specifically during Black History Month, bro. That's just how it's been. And so again, it's who determines what the history is that's told.
Hmm.
Who determines what the history is that's communicated? And I'm trying not to do too much stuff in this same browser because that's what ends up slowing me down. I have to pop out StreamYard to a different browser. Um, but yeah, and so the idea,
Wow.
yeah,
So this thing was done. That's insane.
and so, but the narrative, when you hear people fighting this, and invariably, like Super Bowl, you're always going to see somebody like, we only have one national anthem. Okay, well, then which one should we go with? The one that was considered the Black national anthem before the national anthem was the official national anthem? How are we doing this? Are you saying that this experience matters less because you aren't experiencing it? because that's really what's being said. So yeah, it's crazy, man. And so people aren't
This
necessarily
is crazy, dude.
they're
That's
not
what.
they're not aware of this, man. And I'm not saying one is more important than the other or anything along those
As a
lines.
poem, written as a poem by NAACP James Weldon Johnson in 1899.
And
It says,
1919,
huh?
19,
No, it says, no, it
as
says here.
I know, I'm saying, and as 1919, it was the national NAACP dubbed "Lift Every Voice and Sing" the Negro National Anthem. So in
And they
1919,
write it. Yeah, yeah. But it was written in 1899
mm-hmm,
and set to music by his brother, John, in 1900. It was then 17 years later adopted by the NAACP in 1917 as the Negro National Anthem. That is crazy. What?
yeah,
I would have I would have never, unless we were talking about it, I wouldn't have known that.
yep,
Okay, hold on. So let's look at Star Spangled Banner
mm-hmm,
history. Okay, so Star Spangled Banner was written by Francis Scott Key in September 14th of 1814.
yep,
Okay, during the War of 1812,
mm-hmm,
inspired by American flag still flying at dawn. Key wrote the poem, which was later turned into adopted, like you just said, in 1931.
mm-hmm,
So again, y'all had 31 years of knowing about lift every voice and sing
mm-hmm.
before you adopted this one as like, you know what, this is cool. This is this is some really cool stuff right here. Let's use this. But we'll only sing the first part of it. We'll leave the
Mm-hmm.
rest of it out. That's crazy.
Well, and I know that there was like after 9/11, and this is something else. People don't really understand. After 9/11, yeah, people always stood at sporting events and observed the national anthem, right? But at 9/11, it really became kind of consecrated in the United States that that's what you did, right? But it ended up becoming the narrative of, well, that's always what we did. Well, yeah, it happened, but it wasn't like as death as,
Yeah,
and specifically having the players on the field for that.
yeah.
Because that used to be, and if I remember correctly, it used to be the players would be in the locker room, come out after national anthem. Now having the players on the field, that was a 9/11 thing. But we act like it's always been that way. Well, it's really only been in place for what, 25 years? Last 25 years. And so, the people that are in charge dictate what the history is.
Hmm.
Um, and that's kind of what it is, and it's meant to inspire, because this is the part where it sounds more it sounds a little bit more conspiratorial, but that's how they keep their power, by determining what the history is and saying this is our culture, this is what we do all the time.
Hmm.
Well, we only been doing it for the last 25 years in earnest. Before it was kind
Hmm.
of an informal thing. And so we've been doing it for the last 25 years in earnest, but now it's what we've always done. Well, who determined that?
Hmm.
Well, the people who want to, who expected that the compliance with this. Those are the people that decided that. They want you to comply with this rule. Here's the thing. I worked at Boys Town. That shit was not, man, that shit was not optional. And I was there in the early 2000s. So, you stood for the national anthem, and that was it.
Yeah, that was
And
it.
and
And
if
then
you
let's
did
talk about.
and if you didn't, as a staff member, you would get written up or fired. And that's how I rolled. So the people in power determined that. It wasn't the individual people. It was just kind of what we always did. And so I think people when we look at this stuff and the systems and power, and I'm going to tie this thing in here because it's on my mind. It's been burning a hole through my brain. But, and I don't necessarily know how this aligns, but it kind of does. There's an NBA player right now that got himself cut, he got himself waived from the Chicago Bulls, um, because he kind of went on this little mini rampage about why are we observing Pride Month in the NBA, and he went on this rampage about it, and basically the NBA said, you know what, um, the league, the Bulls basically said, you know what, you can go,
Mm.
and people are mad about it. But here's the thing, um when they enter, because he was posting on social media and subsequent thing, and as you start seeing him, as he start talking about what it is, you're starting to see somebody that is kind of experiencing a level of and I know this isn't a formal diagnosis, so don't kill me, therapist, please don't, a form of religious psychosis, where he's sitting there taking the symbolism and the stuff in the scriptures and interpreting it in his own way
Mm.
as confirmation bias to validate his feelings about why he said what he said.
Right.
And that's the power of symbols versus the system, because the system determines what symbols people pay attention to.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's in this religious system of his own making. And I find it more and more with a lot of hyper religious people that are going through levels of religious psychosis where they're taking scripture and making it into things that justify a very bizarre worldview that have no moral consistency between the two things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's what I'm seeing is, and at the end of the day, look at it like this: if they're tied to a church or not, are they going to give more money? Are those people inclined to give more money? Yeah,
Right.
if you can wrap yourself firmly in that worldview where you've taken the symbology and and given a bunch of meaning to parables that may not attach to you or whatnot, and you force them into having meaning, you're easier to get money out of. You're easier to control whatever church he goes to. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? That's the seeds of that, and that's where it started. But people are mad about it, and it's like the league can say, "Hey, bro, chill on all that, man. We ain't trying to deal with smoke from that crowd." And LGBTQ people watch NBA too, so you're risking alienating another audience. But I'm talking about the power of the symbols that have him talking like that, and how much the Bible is used as like this ironclad interpretation for a lot of people. And really, it's just a shield for their own belief system and their own belief structure. They're just using scripture to validate what they believe
Right.
anyway, their deepest held beliefs. And so they could take some of the ambiguity because, Fearless, you've read the Bible, I've read the Bible, and I've read it as a person reading the Bible, right?
Mm-hmm.
There are parts of it that are very, very ambiguous. And people assign meaning to those super ambiguous passages out the Bible. And then they use it to rationalize some pretty awful shit. You know what I'm saying? I've
Yep.
seen people do some really, like, this is a side. I've seen some people do some very vile shit and then hop on Facebook talking about, well, only God can judge me.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Only God can judge you. You did something that was obviously vile and you jumped on here to defend it because saying that. And so it's a slippery slope. And that's what I'm saying. The difference, the use, the way the system uses symbology to get people roped in. Sorry, that was a tangent.
No, I'm honestly starting to believe that some of these people don't believe in God whatsoever, or they probably understand that there's something that there's no God to fear.
Yeah.
That they understand something that we don't, or something that we lost the understanding of.
Uh-huh.
And I think that that's the reason why a lot of these individuals or these entities or these governments or these agencies operate the way that they do, because they know that so many of us are God fearing this and the other, but these motherfuckers, they don't fear God like that at all. So
Yeah.
so either A, they don't believe in God, or B, they understand something that we don't. And because they understand that, they're able to do all this shit, knowing that ain't nobody gonna do nothing because we're God fearing people. And I mean, and I think that the more that people move away from the church, and I think that the more the people and I hate to say that it's just the church because for a lot of people that is their salvation.
But you're
You
onto
know what I'm
something there.
saying?
I want you to go on. I want you to continue, but you're onto something there because I'm about to jump
But
into it. I'm about to feed into it.
I just kind of think though that how else would you teach morality or you preach morality, but you don't do any of the same stuff? So again, I mean, and maybe it's because they have a very violent nature
Hmm.
to them in general. Like I don't know. I know that people end up being just like what the colonizers are
Hmm.
or whatever. So you're going to move the same way that they move, whether you want to or not. That's the culture you grew up in. You know what I'm saying? So like I was reading in my anthropology book that there's this particular tribe and country in Africa where to be by yourself, they considered it being like something's wrong with you, like you're going insane.
Hmm.
So like when the volunteers would come and then they would go off by themselves to kind of be alone, somebody in the tribe would go back and go follow them.
Hmm.
But it'd be like two or three people come and follow everywhere they went. Somebody from the tribe would go with them. Here in our country, in our civilization, in our culture, we love to spend time by ourselves. But in their culture, they, you know what I'm saying, like they don't see it that way. They look at that as you have a mental problem
Hmm.
because they don't understand why somebody would want to be alone. They don't get that. Just like the concept of going on vacation. Why would you go on vacation away from your friends and family? They don't understand that why would you need to take a vacation from your life?
Yeah.
They don't they don't get that. So again, man, like there's certain and I think that these individuals are doing evil shit because, like I said, either A, they're just inherently violent in general.
Yeah.
B, they don't believe in God or consequence or any of that shit. Or the third thing is that they know something that we don't.
So I'll jump in here. So the thing that ties these together, and I mentioned it before on this show, is the concept of palogenic ultranationalism. I posted the video link to Innuendo Studios. He did an entire video about white fascism, and he has an entire section about that. I posted it in the private chat, Fearless. When you get a chance, check it out. But the concept of palogenic ultranationalism is this: it uses nationalism, concept of nationalism, patriotism, or whatnot, and it tethers it to religion in a way where the concept is coined by Roger Griffin. It's a theory defining fascism as a combination of extreme nationalism and palogenesis, which is national rebirth. It posits that
Mm.
fascism is a mystic revolutionary ideology aiming to regenerate a nation perceived as being in terminal decline, creating a new, pure society, often through violence and totalitarianism. And so the idea of the national rebirth, the country's going downhill. When we have our purge, when we have our moment, when we have the cleansing fire, when we go through our sacrament, whatever we're doing, whenever we experience that, after that point, all the collateral damage will be worth it because we'll have a brand new reborn country. Right now, it's once we get rid of all these immigrants that are befoul and soiling our country through their mere presence, once we get rid of them, then we're going to have a national rebirth, and the country will return to its once great nature. That's palogenesis, right? And so it's a concept of it comes from Greek. It refers to rebirth or create or recreation.
Hmm.
And so, and then the ultranationalism parts come from um, elevation, extreme nationalism that elevates one state or one people above all others, frequently xenophobic and fixated on national unity and greatness. And I will say in this country that default is whiteness, where white is kind of the default and what is normal. That's where the nationalism is tied. So Christian nationalism and white nationalism are cousins.
Hmm.
They're incestuous cousins, because they fuck everything up. Um, and so, but these two things are tied. They're tethered together. So the religious fervor of the extreme the extremely hyper religious person that uses the scripture to justify every awful demonic horrible thing that they do and the people that they harm is also tied to a country that uses its culture and history and its position of always being on the right side as an excuse to rationalize and justify every piece of harm that they do to everybody else. And so when you start getting into somebody saying, pounding the table, you're taking away my God given, and Inyo Studio talks about this. You're taking away my God given right to do blah, 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 blah. And it's a bunch of vacuous, nonsensical things that are intangible and are not real.
Right.
You're dealing with palogenic ultranationalism. And I saw this at play with a friend of mine where he got into it. And this is during like Obama years, where you were talking about the healthcare thing. And I asked him, like, hey, man, what did you actually physically lose? Well, Obama, he's taken away my God given right. And I said, your God given right to do what? And he
Hmm.
could never give me an answer. What right don't you have that you had before he got in office? He couldn't give me an answer.
Right.
It's because his view of what the American system was fractured at that point, and he couldn't put words to it. It's a really weird thing, but the embrace, the hardline embrace of religion and nationalism is actually a component and feature uh of our American system right now.
Yeah.
And you don't have to rationalize it. It doesn't have to. It doesn't have to have any experience. It doesn't have to have any real world explanation. It just is.
Yeah. You know what, man? I could be wrong about this, but um, just like with Nazi Germany, after homeboy left and or did what he did to himself.
Mhm.
There was a bunch of Hitlers, like
Yep.
last name wise in uh in the world and also in New York. There was a bunch of them. After World War II, you couldn't find a goddamn one.
Hmm.
I I'm not gonna lie to you. I feel the same exact thing with this Trump thing.
Hmm.
Like people are going to try to get away from that dude as much as possible because of all the shit that's gonna come down. It's and that's the part that kind of it doesn't scare me, but
Mm.
I think that some of these people need to be prepared for what's gonna happen when this man is out of office and you have to atone for all the shit you did
Well,
while this man was in office.
yeah, you got to mend the
All
relationships.
I don't think that some of these relationships are mendable.
That's what I'm saying.
I
And
don't think that they are because you vote. Not only did you vote for this man once, but technically three times.
mhm,
You know what I'm saying? And knowing what this man was gonna do, because he told you what he was gonna do.
mhm,
Y'all can act like you don't believe him all day, but he told you what he was gonna do. And the greatest thing that I learned from Malcolm Gladwell in his show Revisionist History, he said sometimes you don't need to look at. He said we spend so much time looking at the president. He said
mhm,
what you have to do is you have to look at the people that he surrounds himself with.
yeah,
they are the ones that are going to be in his ear.
Yeah.
They're the people that you need to worry about. The president, if you get the right people around, then for the most part, they're going to toe that line. But for
It's
the most part, if you find people that are worse than you, the havoc that people can reap that they can wreak on people is unconscionable. And that's what you have right now.
mhm. It's a mixture of zealotry and yes men. Some people fervently believe in some of the most extreme aspects of this, and others are just there for the power. And that's why I do believe that there's a level of cult of personality that surrounds him. And I think that they're trying to find ways to continue it on. But once he is not with us anymore, I believe the cult of personality crumbles and they're not going to be able to find anybody that is that uh, it's two ends of it. Who is that polarizing but that empty of a vessel. Does that make sense?
So,
Polarizing
um,
yet empty of a vessel where he's not really married to any specific ideology except the one that is going to win the interaction at the time.
so JD Vance
Mhm.
is second in command, or whatever. Some people feel that he's being built specifically for that.
Uh-huh.
That if anything happens to Trump while he's in office, or whatever, JD Vance will take over and kind of toe the line on exactly what his
Yeah.
predecessor has done for. And I was watching John Oliver because he was talking. He just had a thing about him about a week or so ago. So I
Yeah.
was reading. I was in the middle of reading JD Vance's book, Hillbilly Elegy,
Where he pretends to be a poor person. I read that. I
and
read that one a long time ago.
and so they were, talking about that and looking at the stuff that he was talking about with his family and drug addiction and all that stuff of growing up in Ohio and in Tennessee or wherever his family were had migrated from. But and then he was even talking about some of the friends that he had and this and the other, especially when he got into college and stuff. And you sit there and you wonder, like, okay, like you can understand where it's coming from. And here's the thing: he made no apologies about this white problem that was happening
Mhm.
in these rural parts of America. And again, he wasn't making it seem like, what I'm saying, like this was like a white nationalist type of thing. He was just like, dude, there were issues. Now there was some shit that he said that was like, okay,
I think you're hitting the same thing I did.
okay. Especially like when he was talking about Barack and he was talking about um, Bill Clinton not necessarily being one of us and being one of them. And then they're not feeling like Barack Obama was American enough
Hmm.
or whatever, and this, that, and the other. So, but then, you have him talking shit about Trump and this, that, and the other. And so Trump taps him on the shoulder. Then it's all balls to the wall. Why do we have to feel bad about being white? It's like, who the fuck asked you? Like, nobody, I don't think anybody's ever asked or said that y'all motherfuckers think about shit like that.
Yeah.
Nobody else thinks about
Nobody
that.
else, and that's where it's like,
Like,
I,
nobody thinks about that shit.
and I've had to tell people like, hey man, don't try to pin your whatever guilt you carrying around on me. I'm
Yeah,
not carrying
motherfucker,
it
I ain't
toward.
got nothing to do with
I
that.
ain't got nothing with that. But here's the thing. So you watched it. His mentor Peter Thiel. You're talking about Neo. You're talking about Germany. Grandpa left Germany when it became illegal to be a Nazi in Germany, and took family all over the world
Okay.
to find a place where they could openly be Nazis. And they landed in South Africa. There's a little encampment that they landed out that was carved out for German refugees where they could still practice Nazism.
Ain't that crazy that they would go
That
that they would go there? If you want to practice that, why don't you take your ass over to Israel?
but that's what he grew. And so here's what I'm saying. This is what Peter Thiel grew up in. This was his entire existence
Hmm.
until he grew up. And a lot of his policies ain't too far off from the Nazism part. It removes some of the more insidious parts. But like I said, the Curtis Yarvin thing that he's a big follower of, where the guy says some people are have a higher predilection to being slaves. This is what Peter Thiel believes. There's also the man that is singularly responsible for elevating JD Vance to the space he's in right now.
Hmm.
And my part of contention with JD Vance's entire thing was, well, yeah, the rural poor white folks are feeling forgotten about, but it's like, but in this country, when have they ever not been the topic of discussion or been
Right.
the main perspective that they're dealing with? It's very fringe cases on a national level where they haven't been
That
the
part.
main. And so what we're talking about is rich white folks forgetting about poor white folks, instead of saying it is the white people up here that have forgotten about these rural Appalachian folks and are discrediting and making their lives incrementally worse every single time. Instead of assigning blame, he made it seem like, oh, well, and the way they stitched together was like, yeah, Obama and like you're making it seem like it was an Obama thing that they forgot about these rural, and it's like it's not. It's
Yeah.
the
They.
powers that be.
Yeah. It's the system itself.
You found the scapegoat.
It's the system itself.
You're scapegoating. Somehow you're making it the existence of non-white people. You're making it seem like it's our fault that the Appalachian people got forgotten about. And it's really, we've never been in charge on that level. We had one president, and his cabinet was mostly white folks. And it's still that one president didn't change the composition of a lot of the heads of universities. It didn't change the heads of these corporations and Fortune 500. It didn't change the racial demographic or shift the demographics of any of these places that aren't connected directly to the White House. So you're almost taking this thing where these Appalachian people have been forgotten about and misused and abused and victimized by this
Yeah.
system, and you're outsourcing it to somebody else. And that was my issue with him. It's like you're making it seem like it's external. And one of the people that is giving you the most money is also one of the people that is causing harm, you know, as a byproduct by the policies they enact and the people that they endorse and the money they put into politics. They are creating this system that makes
Yeah.
those people in Appalachia suffer. But you're outsourcing it. You're not tying it to you're not tying it to the people that it really belongs to, because he needs money from those people.
Hmm. Yep. Yep. So
That was my
I
thing
mean,
about it.
I yeah. I mean, but he didn't really go that like really like he did, but he really didn't.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like even his record in the military was kind of like this is what you did.
It was he's an
Like
unremarkable dude
like
that's
like
been.
this is what you like what? I'm gonna lie to you when you're talking about because he went to the military first and then went to college afterwards, and I was honestly thinking like, damn, dude, like this dude was probably a SEAL or some shit, and
Mhm.
this that, and the other. It's like, nah, this is a regular. And he even talks about it in the beginning of his book that yeah, I mean I haven't done anything
Mhm.
that's really worth writing about. I'm just a fucking white dude from such and such that
Mhm.
what I, what? Oh, okay, yeah, I'll do that.
It's the
But you know what I mean? Like that's kind of what I saw. So
it's kind of the fake everyman kind of thing, because I guess for me, the way that they kind of rolled him out there, and I don't know, I think this is probably the narrative that they're going to go with when it's time for him to start ramping up for election season, right? They're going to say he's an everyman who overcame all the odds, right? And
oh yeah,
he
I'm
he
sure.
he overcame extreme poverty and blah blah blah. There's a lot of people that don't have a stable family member that they can go to when their mom is on drugs and strung out and everything.
Correct. Which
And
he had his grandmother.
that's one, but I'm not even going down that path 100%. What I
No,
will
get it.
what I will say is this. If you're saying that if people think that he represents every man, not every single person can come into college and find a multi billionaire who's willing to dump unlimited amounts of money into you to raise you up through the political system. That as soon as one of the gatekeepers decides to let you in the gate, you are no longer part of the rest of us. And to to sit in that seat and speak to people that will never have the same level of access, and I'm talking about white folks. These white folks look just like him, but they'll never have the same level of access
No,
to
never.
to the
Never.
conversations that move the needle, and to pretend like you are one of them. That's what the trick is going to be. I think that the cult of personality, I think that it is a unique component. I think they're grooming him for that spot. I don't know if there's enough to keep him there, because you have to have a level of um where you don't have any real beliefs in anything at all, any point in time. And you have to be
Mm,
willing to trade those beliefs at the drop of a hat to win the interaction. And that's what Trump is. It's ultimate salesman, bro. Like the ultimate salesman who doesn't really believe in anything except winning that thing,
mhm.
whatever he's going for. I don't know if we're going to be able to duplicate that. I don't think once that head is gone, I think we're going to see a lot of infighting and disarray, because we're already seeing it right now. And that's kind of his management style, is getting all your underlings to compete and fight for your attention. I worked under that kind of environment. Um, I didn't, I ended up leaving that kind of environment. But having
Mhm.
all your underlings fight and combat, because once if they're fighting against each other, they're all trying to curry favor with you.
Right.
So I don't know, man. I think it's an interesting take, and I almost feel like that's an entire episode in and of itself, because I think we'll end up getting some pretty inflammatory comments on that one. I'm being honest with you. I think people are gonna feel some kind of way about the entire JD Vance thing,
Why?
and the Trump thing, because I think it touches on third rails in this country that people don't want to acknowledge. Um,
Mhm.
the fact that I'll say it, that the fact that poor white folks in Appalachia are still white folks in Appalachia. Their life isn't harder because they're white. Life is harder because they're poor and living in Appalachia.
Correct. Yep.
Whereas a poor black person who's living in Appalachia, because there are poor black people that have to live in Appalachia, um, their life is hard because they're poor and because they're a black person living in Appalachia.
All right.
And if JD Vance would have never, there wouldn't have never been no JD Vance if JD Vance was JD Jones or JD Green or JD.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? There would have never been no JD Vance if he was it.
Showing I know vice president.
Not a vice president, JD Vance. Peter Thiel wouldn't piss on him to put him out on
Yeah,
Peter's on
no.
fire if he was in college as a black kid from Appalachia who made it in and went to the military and went to college. Even if he was Republican aligned, even if he was MAGA aligned, even if he was right wing and seemed like the perfect vessel, he would have never received that money. He would have
Right.
never received that backing on that end of it. So there is a layer of, yeah, he had it because of the background too, and they're able to
Mhm.
monetize that. But I remember that Hillbilly Elegy book, and there are parts of it like, okay, this makes sense, but then there are parts of it where you're like, that's a little bit of rate. There's just a little sprinkle of that. If you're listening to what I'm talking about, viewers may not get this, but you read something, you're like, there's just a little bit, like a sprinkling, like you can taste it, like garlic in the background, like notes of garlic in the background, a little bit of racism, like just a little bit, just a smidge, just a sconce of the racial element to it. Does that make sense? Like
Mhm.
it's not enough to make you say, "Man, this tastes like shitty, dirty racism." Just a
Right.
seasoning element in the background to give it that little bit of flavor. And I think for me, that's what turned me off of a lot of that book, because you could just get it was just tiptoeing around the edge of that, the fringes of that. And I think the last piece I'll throw in here, and then we can move on because I'm rambling. Um, it's interesting watching JD. He's going to have these kids that are biracial. It's
Say
going to be
what?
he has biracial kids, right? Like his wife is India, but she's Indian, but
Yeah,
she comes from the higher up caste system where
that
India's
part.
caste India's
That
caste
part.
system. And for those that are
That part.
watching, if you've never experienced colorism and don't understand how this works, the Indian caste system will not make any sense to you. But if you've experienced
No.
colorism, especially as a black person or a Latino person, there are layers and levels to this. There's going to be
I,
specific.
I'll explain it like this.
Yeah.
Bloods and Crips are predominantly black.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they may all look a little bit different, but they're all, for the most part, usually African American.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that separates them is neighborhood. That is it. And the colors that they wear. But today, everybody wears everything for the most part, right?
Mm-hmm.
The caste system in India is like Bloods and Crips.
Yep.
Everybody looks the same. It's just based on where somebody's from, and that's all that is.
And
There's nothing more to it.
blood sections of sects of bloods will feud with other bloods. Crips will feud with
That's,
other Crips,
yep,
and so,
they war
but
with each other. But looking in, from the outside looking in, you'd have no idea why they're beefing with each other. Because at first you'll think that maybe it's just the color. So if everybody wore green or black, then they'd be beefing over neighborhoods.
mhm,
I once told a dude that one day what's going to happen is that Crips are going to start doing something else. You can't have a whole city full of Crips without without them being enemies with each other. And eventually somebody's going to start wearing red
mhm,
to differentiate themselves from everybody else. So in like LA, you may have Crips and Bloods, but now you have the Hoovers, which they've been predominantly a Crip set
mhm,
since like the 70s. Well, there's only out of like, let's say there's like 10 different Hoover different sets. So 107,
mhm,
5 dudes, 5'7", whatever, right? Now it's it's only one, which I think is five dudes. It's the only Crip set out of Hoover now. Everybody else is now criminals.
mhm,
So they don't say cuz anymore. They do not consider themselves Crips whatsoever. So they don't like being cuz, they don't like being blood. They're criminals
mhm.
in general. And they don't even wear blue, they wear orange. So again, you wouldn't know any of this stuff unless you're like into the culture of it. So, and that's kind of how it is in India with their whole caste system.
And
Same shit.
it's going to be interesting to see what happens, how as his kids get older, if they ever decide to enter politics, how they're going to be perceived and embraced, because they're not going to be able to use a lot of the privilege that he used to get to his political position. They may be able to use some of his connections, but there's aspects of it that will be shut off to them. But I'll go back to this to add a little bit further on. If you really want to be confused by colorism, look at the Dominican Republic and Haiti. Um, because you can have a Dominican talking about, I know Black Poppy, and then the grandma looks like Esther Roll, Florida Evans. Grandma looks like my grandma. Looks like my cousin's grandma.
Mm,
But they'll sit there and tell you I know black, and it's like, because in the Dominican Republic, they were having a very difficult time because there were black Dominicans that were getting forcibly removed and deported to Haiti. There was a time a couple years ago where that was happening, and it doesn't make sense unless you have direct experience with how colorism actually works. So it is what it is. But watching, like I said, JD Vance's wife was in that specific cast that is on the upper end of society. The kids are biracial, so they represent the upper end of that society. But just because they represent the upper end of that specific cultural context or constraint within the Indian community, they're also white. They're not going to be able to derive some of the benefits. It's going to be interesting to see how his kids are embraced and perceived if they ever decide to go to politics. But I don't know if JD Vance is going to carry the movement off, bro. Just because I don't know if he's empty enough as a person to do it. I know that sounds crazy, but when I look at Trump and shit like that, I see a person driven by a pure, was it id? What was the Sigmund Freud's different layers of personality? Somebody who's driven by just desire. They're motivated 100% by desire, motivated 100% by pleasure. You know what I'm saying? And I see him as kind of that.
Gotcha.
And I think people have cast who they want him to be. They project who they imagine him to be upon him, and he'll live that. He'll be that. He'll be whatever you want him to be. Does that make sense? And so, because most of the people behind him are voting for him, have this core set of beliefs as Republicans, or not even Republicans, like right-wing MAGA, because MAGA is kind of its own party at this point. Because most people align with that, he's going to embody what they like. And the people that are putting money in his pocket, he's going to embody what they want him to be. So I think he's a very unique case of somebody that, and I had to look it up, a very unique place. I think he occupies a unique space. I don't think you're going to see anybody be able to take that movement and just step into it and be this amorphous thing that people just project their will upon and project how they want to view him. Just like you see him like, oh man, he's a masculine, manly man. Masculine, manly man. I mean, but he also wears an adult diaper and he flinches all the time and he's ducked every bit of conflict and stuff. Like he avoided the draft. He did all this other stuff. But he's a masculine, manly man. He's never worked a blue collar job. He's never worked with his hands at any point in his life. He's been rich his entire life. All the aspects that you would attribute to a self-made man and a masculine person, and in this society that we consider a hard-working man, he doesn't have any of those. He has a golden toilet on his airplane. You see what I'm saying? But people want him to be that, so they project that onto him. And he's not the first president that people have done that with. People did that with Obama too. People did it with Clinton. People did it with all the Bushes, Reagan, all of them. But he's a kind of a unique cult of personality. That's all I got on that, Fearless. I'm dominating here. Let me go ahead and jump back to
Nah, you good, man. Okay.
What do you think about social media creating illusions of power? I feel like we discussed this one.
Well, okay, which one?
Social media creating illusions of power. Do we have anything to add on to that piece of it?
Hold on one second. I'm looking at it now. Sorry.
Because the other one is why real power stays quiet. I think that's the one we didn't get to.
Okay, yeah, let's touch on that and then we can kind of start wrapping some stuff up, man.
I feel that. So most devs said real power don't power trip. And I think that's a real thing. I think
for sure you don't have to.
Real power is not audacious. It doesn't seek the spotlight. It just knows it controls the spotlight. Real power is controlling where the spotlight is shined. The fake power is the one that's chasing to be in front, that's running to be in front of it all the time. And like you said, and you can expand on it, operates through systems and not necessarily performance. I think the systems create the performance, if that makes sense.
Okay.
I think the system dictates how you perform. You know, it dictates how you perform regardless of where you are. And so you can't perform in a way that the system does not allow for.
Gotcha.
That's just my take. Um, and so it's embedded in policy decisions, ownership structures, regulatory frameworks, which is a big one. I think we're not gonna have enough time to get into how regulations have shaped the world we're in, and institutional control. um,
No.
and loud displays of power are often performative, and quiet power is often decisive. Because quiet power doesn't need to negotiate with anybody. It just says this is the way shit is, and that's how it's gonna be.
Right.
Um, and that kind of I would say that kind of power can be intoxicating.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I look at some of these dictators in these other countries or whatnot, where yeah, they have elections, but the elections are really just kind of window dressing. Like, yeah, we're gonna put this dude's gonna win. We don't really care. That person has a seat of power that they don't have to loudly announce. They just occupy the space.
Right.
So, what are your takes on that?
No, I mean, dude, I 100% agree.
Okay.
Like,
Um,
I do. I mean, there's not really much that you can. At least I don't think that there's really much you can do with it one way or the other, man.
okay.
I mean, at least I don't think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's ask our viewers. What do y'all think?
Yeah. Let's throw in. What do y'all think about how power presents itself, and um, the difference between that loud power and that quiet power? Um, and this is the thing that we do need to talk about, because Fearless and I have discussed it, and I've seen people they've mentioned it, but they're never quite articulate in how this works. It's always framed as, I've seen the meme online where it's the black dude wearing a Black Panther shirt and then the white dude wearing the Confederate flag shirt, and they're like, if we all work together, we can, beat the system and stuff. And it's like, that's a sloppy. To me, that's a sloppy way to put it.
Massively, like, yeah, because one's a terrorist organization,
Right.
but the other one was trying to actually help out everybody.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing hey, who's the what the white dude have on?
He had like on the Confederate flag and all the other stuff, all the
There,
symbolizing.
there's nothing there's nothing that they've done that has helped everybody, where everybody's benefited from it.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I think that you have to look at it from, to me, that standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? The Black Panther Party, as short-lived as they were, created some shit that we still use to this day.
Public health clinics, feeding
because
kids.
of what they did
Yeah.
then. Show me something that happened. Show me a piece of legislation. Show me some shit that y'all did that benefited everybody.
I mean, let's keep it being.
You see what I'm saying?
The KKK was
Show
born
me
out.
anything.
The KKK was born out of the post Confederate movement. That was a direct descendant, direct lineage of the Confederate movement was the KKK. Like, they wouldn't exist. Those are a lot of former Confederate, like, people that are really tied to the Confederacy. And so the idea that you can compare those two things has always been egregious to me. Like I said, the Black Panthers did breakfast and lunch programs for kids, health clinics, free health clinics, and all that other stuff. Those are Black Panther things, endeavors.
Right.
When has the Confederacy ever built anything along those lines?
That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. What have you ever done that's helped everybody?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, those free clinics help blacks and whites.
Yeah.
And it helped everybody. The free shit, those free breakfast meals, those free meals in general, happen for everybody. They open it up for everybody. So show me what you guys have done where everybody's benefited.
I had some dude fighting me to the ground on this. It's like, the Panthers never did that. They absolutely did. And
yes, they did.
And it's like, you have taken this weird idea of what you think history is.
Ambulances. Motherfucker, you think y'all created that? No. Y'all would never show up uh, to people's neighborhoods.
Yep.
Fuck out of here.
There's an entire thread about old school white New York firefighters talking about how they were having nightmares because they wouldn't rescue people. They wouldn't rescue kids in black neighborhoods.
Nope.
And one was literally talking about how he had nightmares of hearing a baby scream and being burned alive because
Yeah.
he because the
No
fire
doubt.
because the department refused to rescue the black citizens in a burning apartment. It was crazy work. So
On some shit that they're paying taxes for.
right.
So
And
here's the thing. Even if you didn't give us reparations, cool, okay. Pay us back for that part.
yeah.
At least pay those people that you didn't protect back. Give them their fucking money back.
And it was a program, like it was a department at the time. It was an informal department policy that only certain people would get rescued, and other times they would show up to the building because they had to come out to the call, but they wouldn't go in, and they would hear
Right.
kids and women and men screaming to death as they're getting burned alive. That's a real thing,
Yeah.
and y'all can look this up online. There's documented cases of firefighters who were in that era who have PTSD because they didn't agree with it, but they were forced to go along with it because if they ran into that building, they would get burned alive because they wouldn't get any support from their departments. It's a real thing, and it's not slanderous to say. It's sickening, y'all, and it will disturb you and it will haunt you, but it's a
Yes,
real thing.
yes. It is
So
very sickening.
so misunderstanding power creates grievance, right? And so when people misunderstand power, they interpret outcomes as personal attacks. And so that's why when when Bush 2, I think it was Bush 2, when he decided to saw the legs off the economy and it all collapsed and the stock market collapsed and the housing market imploded and all the other stuff. That's why people think it was Obama's fault because he just happened to take over after the bottom had fallen out of everything.
Right.
They ascribed that to him because they don't necessarily know the power dynamics at play that were existence before the person that they are mad at taking space. And so it leads to misdirected anger, it leads to resentment, it leads to confusion. That's how scapegoating is a very powerful tool to alienate people because people aren't necessarily aware of the power dynamics at play that created the situation they're currently facing. And
Right.
since they don't really know how these things interface with one another, they just make up whatever, they just find whatever's convenient and believe that.
Right.
And that's how grievance politics works, by creating a situation, by power creating a situation that people can't necessarily explain, and then saying, well, the reason why things are the way that they are is because of that person over there,
Mm-hmm.
and not because of the legislation I created. I put the legislation in place that is actively destroying your life, but since you don't really know that covertly, you don't necessarily have the access to the logs and the who what lobbyists paid me and stuff like that, because you don't have direct access to knowledge to know that. All I got to do is point at that group of people over there and say it's their fault that you experience in the thing that I signed into law.
Right.
And that's how it goes. All right. Mental personal effects of misreading power. People compare themselves to visible success and assume it reflects real power. It don't. Um, you can operate power in a bubble in a specific context where you're very powerful, but once you escape that context, your power goes away. Ask R. Kelly and Diddy how that worked.
Mm-hmm. Right. But again, though, man, the system itself.
But then
I mean, again, you can keep
you had real
you can
power.
you can change the people, you can change the situation,
Uh-huh.
you can change whatever. But if you do not change the system, it will it doesn't matter who or what you are. The
Mm-hmm.
system is the system. And once that system changes, everything else that's attached to it will change. But it is only if and until it changes.
Uh-huh.
Otherwise, you're not going to change anything.
Yeah.
Nothing. So even if you're a black dude and you're a multi-millionaire, it's not gonna matter. It'll help,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not gonna matter
Yeah.
because the price of what it is still what it is. Period. The system itself has still stayed the same, and it's going to wash anything or anyone that is that is at the status quo for the most part. It's going to keep it status quo.
Mm-hmm.
Why? I mean, it's almost like if there was a book that taught you the specifics of how to succeed in life in general, right? If there was a book that taught you how to become a multimillionaire, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this book was so amazing that it was helping people like all walks of life become millionaires, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what would happen to that book?
It costs it'll either get banned or it'll cost $1 billion to get access to.
Let's say that people just for some reason, I don't know what this book was, has made more millionaires than anybody else and taught you a step-by-step system. And this system actually just so happened to work,
Mm-hmm.
right? That book will go out of print almost quickly. And then or updates will be made of it to switch some stuff around
Make it least
or whatever
effective.
to make it least effective.
Mm-hmm.
Because the objective is for the society that we live in, there has to be bottom feeders.
Mm-hmm.
There has to be.
Yeah, it can't
And here's
exist.
the thing, I'm not gonna lie to you. I understand. I get it. You know what I'm saying? Like we as a society, we love looking down on people. You know what I mean? Like seriously, like would you really want a $70,000 car if everybody else could afford it too? You wouldn't give a shit. It'd just be like any other car. You know what I'm saying? To be able to go somewhere and say I can do this and you can't feels amazing.
Well, the
I mean, let's go ahead.
Patrice O'Neill called it the promise of middle management. Ooh, the promise
Correct.
of middle management.
I mean, but no, but see, it's more than that though. It's not just the middle management.
Mm-hmm.
That's just what it's called. But taking it a step further, when when you're still in the rat race and I'm not.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? When you got to get up and go to work, but I don't. When my life and my family, we're good. You should probably get out there and go try to make it. Like even if my life was designed and given to me,
Mm-hmm.
it kind of makes a person feel like, well, just get out there and go, do whatever you need to do. But yours wasn't get you didn't get out there and go do that yourself. It was nepotized. It was somebody passed on and gave you a hell of a head start.
Uh-huh.
You know what I'm saying? So to sit there and act like you know what I'm saying, like you have everything to do with that, let's not do that. Don't do
Well,
that.
and the context he was kind of using it in was the promise of being better than this person is enough to take your eye off of how bad you're being shafted by the people above you.
That part.
And so that's the promise of middle management. I get to look down and micromanage these people. I don't care what y'all do over up here
Mm,
above me, and you're putting me through all the blues. As long as I got somebody to look down on, because that's the middle manager's role. You are caught in between two worlds. You're caught in between the workforce and upper management, and both hate you. Neither
right.
one of them
I
like
mean,
you.
you're basically like the overseer of a plantation.
Yeah, and that's kind of what it is. And so that's that problem. And I think you are onto something with that, man. I think I do think that as long as we have somebody looked on our noses that we will detach from the things that are actually crushing us underneath. And I think that leads to that misreading of who's actually in charge and who actually has the power, because as long as you can get some group of people to look down on this other group of people, you don't care how much they're going in your pockets. It does go back to the JD Vance and Appalachia thing, because there are people in Appalachia that would not trade they wouldn't trade their lot. They wouldn't trade their existence if they had to be a middle class black person.
That was which that's great. And again, that's only here in this country.
But then
You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, though, I wouldn't want to be one of them either.
no, well, and
I
the
mean,
thing,
just so I could sit around and complain about what the fuck I don't got and who took it from me and All that shit, bunch of pussy ass whiners.
And the thing about it is the entire thing I talked about with Diddy and R. Kelly, and Epstein. Now, if you talk about the differential power and access, you're talking about somebody who was, you have people that had individual personal power that they amassed through their own systems. And then you had somebody who was actually institutional power, where he could call, and he did this, where he can call, the local district attorney and say, hey, back them off of me.
Yeah.
Remove this person from this case. You wouldn't want a person like me to go down, because he had the backing of all the entire infrastructure of all these intelligence agencies and stuff. That's real power. The man was running one of the largest multinational human trafficking rings. And I'm not saying since slavery, but it was large, and it was in modern history. And he got house arrest. Diddy's still in jail. R. Kelly's still in jail, where they need to be. I'm not even saying that, but
again, though, I mean,
he got work release and house arrest.
Right, but I mean, at the same time, though, they don't need to be in jail for what they did. For what they did, that wasn't jail worthy.
R. Kelly was. He was a pedophile.
R. Kelly wasn't a pedophile. R. Kelly liked fucking young girls, but they were still legal. He's not in jail for that, though. Yeah. He's in jail for some other shit.
I think, for me,
but he's not in jail for pedophilia.
I'm not, and so I know that I'm coming in as a biased person.
So am I.
Yeah,
I'm with you on that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, off top, all I'm saying is that, like, it's funny as shit. I mean, even what's homeboy's name? Oh my god, what is that other dude's name? I forgot his name. I mean, if we're talking about morality, yes, I 100% agree. Like, dude's doing some weird ass shit.
Well,
but at the same time, if it was that fucking bad, his ass would have been in jail when he was fucking on Aaliyah.
We should have been in jail, and that's what I'm saying.
You know what I'm saying? He would have been in jail then, and he wasn't that fucking wealthy.
Yeah, my solution.
Not at that point, he wasn't.
He wasn't wealthy, but he had a ton of influence in Chicago. I talked to people that were at contemporaries around there.
Right, in Chicago, state, not fed,
not federal, but yet
not fed. But say, but if they don't fuck with you, if they don't like you, if they dropped it, Fed would have picked that up, and ran with it.
And that's why I'm saying his power is contextual. It was contextual and limited to.
That's what I'm saying.
His base of influence.
I mean, even whooping old dude, even whooping Cassie's ass. I just saying, morally, yeah, that shit was horrible as fuck. But they had people come to the house to go fuck on them.
Yeah.
And that's what he got charged with. Like, what? So that basically means that if I go across state lines, so that means if I have an Uber bring a chick from Council Bluffs to Omaha, because that's two different states, technically that's prostitution. That's just, what is that called?
Interstate trafficking, and that's really
interstate trafficking. So I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, I guess.
But instead, you can fly to an undisclosed island, bust nuts and fucking 5-year-olds, and then be president of the United States.
My thing is,
fuck out of here, man.
I'll toss them. In my opinion, I'm tossing them all kind of in that similar basket. But what I will say is this: on the Diddy and R. Kelly front, I think they realized it crossed the horizon where I could actually go to jail for this at some point in the way, and that's why they spent so much money, because they knew, like, oh, I can get jammed up for. It wasn't a surprise to either one of them that they ended up getting jammed up, is regardless of how they acted. I remember
for Diddy, I think he was more surprised than R. Kelly was.
Yeah,
because think about the people that Diddy knew.
Yeah,
and probably filmed.
But that's what I'm
doing
saying.
Shit.
He had contextual power. He didn't have enough influence over them to impact whether they pursued charges on him. where Epstein does. And that's the thing, and that's the power differential. Epstein could do things that neither one of them creeps could ever imagine, could even fathom to do.
Right.
He can get away with stuff, and that's the power differential, and that is the misdirected power, y'all tripping over this end of it, but you're not seeing where the real power lies. And so
Mm,
that's where the conversations come in. So all right, Fearless, I know we've been on 2 hours, and Ms. Anya is probably chomping at the bit to get on hers.
cheers.
So let's go ahead. Guys, if you guys got any comments or anything, go ahead and comment on the videos. We're gonna start seeing this. I got a bunch of episodes I'm actually working on upload to Spotify. And so you're gonna start seeing these pop up on your Spotify feed, and by extension, iTunes and all the other stuff. So be on the lookout for that, for the show in those formats. I do appreciate y'all. Thanks for tuning in. And explain if you got any like power differentials you guys want us to talk about in the future. Go ahead and drop them in the comments and tag us in it. Again, this has been Brian with the Trial and Error podcast.
Fearless too.
Fearless. We'll talk to you guys later. Peace.